Hey y'all, what's up? It's Friday, so I'm gonna keep it black, but I'm gonna keep it brief. Now there's a lot of things and systems I've talked about on this show and over again, because it seems like a lot of y'all still don't get it. But you know one thing I've never really gotten into on this show? The jailhouse. Unlocked, a jail experiment, premiered on Netflix last week and has now become the platform's #1 show. If you have not seen it, spoiler alerts up and down this episode. It's a docu-series about a group of inmates at the Pulaski County Regional Detention Facility in Little Rock, Arkansas. They are undergoing a social experiment where their cell doors are unlocked and they get to govern themselves. Now, this prison reform experiment is still a far cry away from the dorm room we found A$AP Rocky in when he got held up in Sweden at one time. But it's a start and essentially asks the question, what happens if we begin to treat these people like human beings and challenge the way we think criminals should be treated? The experiment begins with Sheriff Eric Higgins, the mastermind behind this whole thing, and a black man. And shout out to you, man. It always takes one of us. But Sheriff Higgins introduces this concept to the inmates by telling them that he does not feel that the reason they are in here defines who they are. And this particular unit is currently on a 23-in-1 system, meaning they spend 23 hours in their cells and only 1 hour out per day. Period. So tensions rise, issues with authorities and other inmates occur at a heightened rate, and a need for a physical outlet and stimulus outside the cell is paramount. So he decides to unlock all the doors. Wait. And removes the guards, all in efforts to give the pod a chance to take ownership of their community and be accountable to one another. Sounds amazing to me. Giving people who have had all of their rights taken away the dignity to exist as a functioning and autonomous member of a group sounds a lot more rehabilitative and effective than locking them in a room all day. Through an 8-episode journey, we see the inmates turn to structured group governance, Bible study, addiction group rehabilitation sessions, sports, all while navigating issues with anger management, violence, drugs and alcohol, and mental emotional health issues. And I'm sorry, let me back it up. These are not inmates with misdemeanors, y'all. These are felons with serious offenses facing major time. But in this particular experiment, as they prove their ability to function as a community, they receive more luxuries, basic human rights, like unlimited phone calls, additional visits from loved ones, and unrestricted access to recreation areas. Now, the unlimited phone calls got me. Sheriff Higgins made that choice with intention, knowing that external support and the ability to make repeated and committed attempts to reconcile with people on the outside is also critical to the healing process. Now, all these allowances do come with risks of increased violence or criminal activity. And over time, a few uncooperative apples have to be removed for the sake of everybody else, and lockdown measures reintroduced to reset the group. But as the show progresses, we see that participants become increasingly vocal about how the process has incentivized them to make better decisions. So, the show is really helping us think twice, even thrice, about this country's dedication to punitive measures when the rest of the world has been clocked that treating these people like people is the most beneficial way to reintegrate them back into society. America's recidivism rate is roughly 76%, meaning that over 3/4 of convicted criminals end up committing another crime even if they don't get locked up again. In the 1970s, the country was leaning heavily into conservative political ideologies again, Lord Jesus. And American sociologist Robert Martinson published a study claiming that rehabilitative prison programs don't work, that offenders can never overcome their criminal tendencies. It's giving race science. Move around. The study completely ignored programs with positive results, and the media latched onto his ideas, as did the likes of Nixon and Reagan, and that's how we got to how bad it is today. The Sentencing Project reports that the prison population has grown by almost 500% in the last 40 years. Just within Reagan's presidency, the total prison population rose from roughly 329,000 when he took office to 627,000. And quite frankly, the incarceration rates we see today can be traced directly back to his war on drugs. Just this month, the Federal Bureau of Prisons reported that drug offenses make up 44.4% of charges in the system right now. That's more than double the next highest offense group, which is weapons, explosives, and arson. Today, America has over 2.2 million people locked up. The country with the next highest rates, the UK, only has 87,000 prisoners. It's only funny because it's insane. Now, China has 1.65 million folks in the prison system, but their population is 4 times the amount of the United States, so our ratio still outswells theirs. I will say that they can't run around with the same kind of weapons committing the same kind of crimes we do, so they wouldn't have to have the same ratio of violent offenders, but that's not a flex, sweetie. But on to what these rehabilitative folks talking about. The Netherlands, Germany, Norway. In Norway, over 90% of the sentences are less than a year, and the average prison sentence is around 6 months. Their max sentence is 21 years, unless you commit a crime against humanity, a war crime, or genocide, and in rare cases, that can be extended in 5-year increments. They also separate people with minor sentences from violent offenders from jump into more open facilities with more freedom. There's also a higher inmate to staff ratio, and inmates get their own cells. I will say not all these comparisons are clean though. The difference between those countries and ours is twofold. First of all, those people are white. 90%. Very few of us or anybody else is visibly not white. And as we know, white people only struggle with treating people of color like human beings. Second of all, in America, the country's wealth, capitalism, race, and prison system all go together real bad. We all heard it on 13th. Slavery was outlawed by the 13th Amendment, except as punishment for a crime. And why wouldn't it be? Like an enzyme, slavery acted as a catalyst that thrust America into an unprecedented era of economic growth. And for 150 years, we've seen the incredibly profitable system of slavery turn into the very profitable punitive prison system for some of the country's biggest corporations. And you can Google it if you need a list. That damn slavery. When is slavery not in a room with us? Never!